Chapter 39. The Envoys and the Queen. Hearing Raphael, Rimuru froze momentarily. Ramiris, noticing his strange expression, floated up to his face. "Can you show me?" he asked softly in his mind. Since it appeared Raphael was really struggling, he decided to place his trust in her. If she really believed he needed to see it, she would have shown him without hesitation. The fact that Raphael was so conflicted meant that it would only cause more problems in the future if he saw that future. "Just be careful, Raph. I am trusting you, but don't let us do something stupid." "Okay. Understood. Thank you. Is it too much information? What did I tell you? It's a pain to manage. Just take a deep breath." "Wait. Do you even breathe?" Ramiris fluttered in front of him, snapping Rimuru out of his thoughts. The news from Raphael was a bit heavy, but he decided to take everything one step at a time. For now, he would focus on dealing with the Beastketeers. Though he wanted to play and mess around with the labyrinth, he had to focus on what needed to be done. Falmouth should be a mess right now after losing their army. Gistav would be moving, and Malim was about to drop a nuke in Eurazania. "Don't worry about it, Ramiris. I was just thinking about something. Apparently, we have some visitors from Eurazania, so I will have to leave what I had planned until later. But we will be able to mess with the labyrinth soon." Rimuru chuckled as Ramiris nestled comfortably in his head. "Ah, a meeting. I think I will stay here then. I have some, hard work and stuff to do." "You know," Ramiris muttered, jumping off from his head while whistling. It was clear she wanted to goof around. Rimuru couldn't help but shake his head with a slight smile. "I'll have someone bring you some snacks." Activating spatial motion, he teleported to his office, where the three Beastketeers awaited. Albes, a snake lycanthrope with dark hair and yellow highlights. Sophia, a tiger lycanthrope with white hair and cat ears. And Phobio, kneeling on the ground in apology. It was a strange sight, but it was clear that Shuna still held a small grudge from Phobio's last visit, since he was the only one not standing at the moment. As Rimuru appeared, Albes and Sophia immediately knelt, their heads lowered. "Sir Rimuru, thank you for meeting with us," Albes said first, her voice tense despite her composed demeanor. Shuna, maintaining her professionalism, smiled brightly at Rimuru. She stepped aside, allowing him to address their guest directly. As he took his seat, she motioned for the Beastketeers to speak. Surprisingly, they all appeared to be looking at her for permission. "Demon Lord Malim has declared she will destroy our country," Albes began with a troubled expression. "Lord Carion has sent us to request your help. We know we don't have a formal alliance, but—" Her voice trailed off, uncertainty clouding her eyes. Rimuru leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping the table in a measured rhythm. His curious gaze swept over the three Beastketeers, noting their nervousness. They weren't telling him the full story. "Why come to me?" Rimuru asked, arching an eyebrow. "Carion has plenty of contacts and already owes me a favor. Surely he knows what asking for my help means?" Albes' expression strained slightly before she hid her emotions. "Our Lord remembers your conversation after you defeated Charybdis. You mentioned seeing yourself protecting Eurazania." Albes began, but after noticing Rimuru's deadpan expression, she sighed. "Demon Lord Frey's representatives have denied our requests for help. They said they would only assist if we went through you. Every other potential ally has rejected us, insisting we approach you first." Albes continued. Chuckling slightly, Rimuru thought back to when Frey said she would help him take over Eurazania. Apparently, she had set up some things, and he was sure that if she were awake right now, she would be making demands from Carion. Knowing Frey, she would use the situation to fully bring them under Rimuru, and though that probably would have required a fight against Carion himself, that wouldn't be an issue now that he had awakened. He was their last option. "How long ago did Malim declare war on Eurazania?" Rimuru asked. "It was just 2 days ago, which means we have 8 more days to evacuate our citizens." Albes answered. "It is not enough time to move all of them here, but it should be enough time to send some reinforcements." Rimuru looked at the trio before shaking his head. "No, if they don't evacuate, they will all die. This is a trap set by Clayman." He snapped his fingers, and a shadow appeared, handing him a set of files. Clayman plans to annihilate Eurazania. The Shadow handed the files to the Beastketeers, and as they read them, their eyes widened in surprise. "We need to warn them," Sophia shouted, ready to run to try to inform all of the refugees. "We don't have enough time. If their numbers are true, then we will have to split off, and we will probably still lose the majority of our citizens in the war." All bees answered, clutching the papers with frustration. Phobio, who had still been kneeling this whole time, suddenly shot up to his feet. Carion had asked him to apologize and ensure they accepted it, so he had been biting his tongue this whole time not to shout, but he couldn't hold it back anymore. Listen, I know I messed up. If you need to kill me, then just do it, but don't let Lord Carion and his people suffer because of me," Phobio shouted, clenching his fists. "For some reason, Lord Carion thinks you can help us, and his instincts have never failed him." Shuna's eyes narrowed slightly as she heard him, but she didn't move a muscle since she was letting Rimuru take the lead. "You can't let this happen, Phobio began before being cut off. "Why not?" Rimuru's expression turned cold. "They are not my citizens. It's not my responsibility to defend them." The tension in the room grew, and before it could burst, all bees sighed. "We understand your conditions. Demon Lord Frey has made them clear. However, please understand, we can't offer you Eurazania. We know you are friends with Demon Lord Malim. Perhaps with your help, you can persuade her to stop." Rimuru chuckled, shaking his head. This conversation was going to go in circles. They wouldn't be able to promise anything, and only Carion himself would be able to set anything in stone. If anything, he also wasn't willing to simply let all those people die for no reason. "Malim is hard to reason with once she sets her mind. However, I can protect both your kingdom and your citizens. I'm sure Carion and I can discuss the details later." As they heard him, their eyes brightened slightly, and they felt a glimmer of hope in the otherwise lost cause. "Thank you, Sir Rimuru. It means everything to us. I am sure Lord Carion will repay you for your help." All bees spoke, bowing once again. With their meeting over, Rimuru called for a few maids to guide them into a resting place. It looked like they had run as fast as they could, and they probably hadn't slept since the original declaration of war from Malim. As they left, Shuna smiled and gently hugged him. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, causing Rimuru to chuckle. "Yeah, though I should probably start working again. There's a lot I need to get through," Rimuru answered. "Or is there?" Shuna asked with a giggle, sitting next to him as she prepared to tell him about everything he had missed while he was evolving. Confirmed. Evolution from type Kijin to type Royal Oni successful. All bodily attributes have been greatly enhanced. Notice, as a result of Rimuru Tempest's Harvest Festival, you have awakened the unique skill, Queen's Grace. It comes with the following subskills. Graceful Authority. Grants the user an unparalleled ability to issue commands that are understood and executed with precision. This subskill ensures orders are carried out flawlessly, whether in battle or during administrative tasks. Diplomatic Charm. Enhances the user's ability to negotiate and persuade others, whether they are allies, neutral parties, or potential enemies. This subskill allows her to communicate effectively and win over even the most skeptical of listeners. Inspiring Aura. The user radiates an aura of confidence and authority that boosts the morale and fighting spirit of her allies. In their presence, subjects feel more courageous and determined, gaining temporary boosts to their combat abilities and resistance to fear and intimidation. Royal Haki. An aura that can be used to intimidate or oppress those with weaker wills. Her deepest desire was to help Rimuru. Since he was so busy whenever he was wearing the crown, she wanted to take some of the burden off his shoulders. The voice of the world recognized her desire and gave her a skill designed specifically for this purpose. When she was first named, she felt the strain of the 3 unique skills on her soul, but she didn't complain as she began to work. Her constant training sessions with Rimuru had increased her strength enough to handle the skills. Even with the new unique skill, she felt only slightly burdened. As she opened her eyes, she connected with those sleeping in the labyrinth. Her new skill showed its effects immediately as Noir and Blanc appeared beside her. Noir's eyes kept darting between Rimuru and Shuna, clearly wanting to be by Rimuru's side, but unwilling to disobey orders. Falmouth is probably in chaos after losing contact with their army and king. Raisin is currently in prison, isn't he? Shuna asked. Graceful authority allowed Noir and Blanc to understand her intent instantly. Yes. We also have the unconscious bird lycanthrope suspected of serving under Clayman. They are both in the prison, Noir answered. Shuna nodded, thinking for a moment before giving her orders. I need you, Blanc, and Sauka's team to head to Falmouth to stabilize them and prevent rash actions. We have plenty of blackmail. Use it to control the nobility. Keep deaths to an absolute minimum, and make sure that anyone innocent remains unharmed. Noir chuckled, his eyes finally focusing. Kufufufu, what greater gift could I give my lord than conquering a nation for him? Do not worry, Lady Shuna. By the time our lord wakes up, we will have Falmouth under our control. Blanc, her crimson eyes burning brightly, bowed deeply. We will not fail in our mission. However, before I go, I have a message for you, Lady Shuna. Miss Ellen, the adventurer from Caval's party, intends to call Empress Elmigia of Sarion. I held her off, but she want to meet with you. With one final bow, the two of them vanished. As the people in the labyrinth began to stir, Shuna called for Sui. Within moments, he emerged from her shadow, kneeling before her. I apologize for the delay. I have only just now finished waking up, Sui reported. Shuna chuckled slightly, shaking her head. You're always too harsh on yourself, Sui. Don't worry about it. Her smile caused Sui to nod, hiding his own smile. I need you to send someone who can use particle breath to the prison. Keep both of our prisoners unconscious until Lord Rimuru wakes up. Sui nodded, ready to act. Is there anything else you require, my lady? Call for the representatives of the army. I need to talk to them about our next battle. I also need you to contact Ellen and bring her to the office once I am done with the representatives. Shuna ordered, and with one final nod, Sui vanished. Shuna moved to the throne in the center of the room, gently picking up Rimuru's sleeping body and holding him close. I want you to rely on me more, she whispered, her voice filled with determination. Carrying Rimuru, she made her way to the main office. Looking at all of the citizens who had just woken up, most of them had only received a very minor boost, and even fewer had awakened any skills. But they all looked more youthful and ready to work than ever. As she entered the Capitol building, she took Rimuru to one of their bedrooms before heading to their office, where Benimaru, Cheyenne, Sui, Claire, and Lukia were waiting for her. Lady Shuna, our queen has made us the representatives and leaders of Fulbrosia while she finishes her evolution. We are here to support you in any way you need for your future moves, Lukia said, bowing her head slightly. Anything you need from us, we are ready to support you, Claire added. For the two of them, it was strange to suddenly be integrated into a city that was mainly composed of non-winged people. Their whole lives, they had lived by the rules that if you didn't have wings you were inferior, but now they were surrounded by countless people who were not only stronger than her, but simply didn't have wings. They also still didn't fully feel comfortable with Rimuru. They had only had brief meetings, and though he had tried to reach out to them, they had simply gotten busy with work to avoid any direct interactions. Their mother seemed happy, but it was still weird for them to so suddenly have a king in the matriarchal society. Even then, they had to admit that they respected him, and since their mother had ordered them to be of as much use as possible, they would follow her commands. Shuna couldn't help but smile as she saw the two twin wings, and even though she was still acting like a queen, she did give them a reassuring nod. I see. I'll make sure to keep your opinions in mind. I know what Rimuru's plan is, so I wanted to discuss it with all of you before we set the wheels in motion. If any of you have any comments or opinions, feel free to speak up. We are here to discuss our war tactics. Shuna began, activating thought communication with all of them to share the images of the different tactics they had planned. We'll start by having Sui's spies find and locate all of Jistav's troops. Once we know their coordinates, we can use spatial domination to surround them. Shuna continued, so Sui took a step forward and spoke up. My lady, the spies I planted inside of Jistav have actually managed to successfully gather information on Clayman's plans of attack, so we have a full overview as to what paths they plan to take. However, we have unfortunately lost Sibylla. She overstepped and got trapped in what appeared to be ruins underneath Jistav. We have not heard from her since. The tension in the room grew slightly, but with a nod, they all continued. I see. I will make sure to inform their family personally. Shuna began, taking a deep breath to think about her next steps. They wanted to avoid the loss of any of their citizens if at all possible, but they were all playing a risky game. All the spies knew their lives were at risk the moment they took the job. As Sui used thought communication to share the plans he had in his mind, he also pulled out a few paper copies. Rimuru and Lukia both noticed something and nodded after exchanging a brief glance. There is a trap. Clayman now knows we are spying on him, Rimuru reported, pointing to one of the segments in the paper. There is no tactical sense as to why he would send troops here, Lukia continued. But if you think about it, the only path there is through this mountain, which would be the perfect ambush spot. If there were ground troops, they would be surrounded on all sides. Sui looked slightly embarrassed as he heard them. As he looked at the plans and used their train of thought, he couldn't deny that he, too, had almost fallen for that trap. I apologize. I can no longer assure you what parts of my information are accurate or not. Sui spoke, looking at the plans with a disappointed look. Shuna couldn't help but shake her head. No, rule number one of lying is that the best lies have some truth hidden within them. We can use this to try to predict what is going on through Clayman's mind and beat him at his own game. Remember, we have the advantage of information. Shuna spoke, her inspiring aura activating to focus everyone up. They don't know we can use teleportation circles, so they will only expect our troops to move through the forest. We can play his game in order to make him think that the strength of our troops is lower than they expect. Rimuru spoke, a vicious smile appearing on his face. Have their own confidence be their own destruction. What a fitting end to the troops of such a piece of garbage, Lukia muttered, smiling too, as she pictured how the war would play out. She knew that Clayman was behind Charybdis, so she had nothing but contempt against him and his people. Sui, who had been discouraged a few moments ago, nodded his head. That is true. I can call back my spies from the Western nations, so we will be at full strength. Using a combination of Lord Rimuru's mass to hide magicules and shadow motion, we can detect any enemies before they attack. But isn't the plan for all this to happen during Walpurgis? We can't move the troops around with teleportation circles because we would need Lord Rimuru for that. Plus the amount of magicules and magisteel would be crazy, no? Shine added, pointing out the problems in their plans. Usually, she was a bit of an airhead, but she brought her best when it came to battle. I will also be guarding Rimuru, which means I will need someone else to lead my own guards. She added, getting lost in thought. Shuna smiled, nodding her head as she heard Shine. That is true. However, Rimuru is not the only one who can make them. I can also craft a teleportation circle, and though we could only make one, we could probably place it outside the forest to catch his troops off guard. With some illusion magic, we could move everyone in place without being detected. She spoke. With her unique skill, Analyst, she could perfectly replicate the circles wherever needed. But that would require you to be in the locations. That's too risky, Rimuru said, objecting immediately. Shuna's bright expression instantly became serious as she heard her brother. Looked at him with eyes that made everyone in the room feel as if they were in danger. Brother, you didn't think I would sit back and do nothing like during our fight against Charybdis, did you? I am also planning on stepping onto the battlefield and marching directly to Clayman's castle. Rimuru felt the royal hockey pushing down on him, but he stood his ground. Not only was Shuna his sister, but she was also the queen and wife of Rimuru. If anything happened to her, they were sure Rimuru would snap. Shuna, I am sorry, but I can't allow you to do something so dangerous. You are our queen. Maybe you don't realize how much you matter to everyone. But Rimuru began, his eyes turning softer as he tried to reason with his sister. But Shuna interrupted him as she stood up. It's precisely because I am the queen that I must march onto Jistav myself. I am no longer the young girl you need to care for, Rimuru. I need to set an example not only for our people, but also for Jistav itself. While Rimuru is fighting against Clayman, I will work to take his kingdom down. Shuna, I know, Rimuru muttered, still uneasy at the thought of his sister heading into battle. As the two of them stood their ground, Shine spoke up to break the tension. I trust in Lady Shuna. She can be the one to lead my amethyst guards into battle. Their entire role is to protect her, so they will not let a single hair on her head get damaged. Plus, I'm sure the old man would look after her. Her words broke the tension in the room, and after a few more moments, Rimuru sighed. Shuna, just remember, Tempest needs you, Lord Rimuru needs you, and our father and I need you. Just promise that you will flee at the first sign of danger. Rimuru asked, which made Shuna laugh as she pulled back her royal haki. Don't worry, you aren't getting rid of me so easily. Chapter 40, Veldora, Lord of Storms. As Shuna finished retelling everything she had done in the past 3 days, Rimuru couldn't help but laugh. The two of them were lying on one of the couches, with Rimuru playing with her hair. She had done everything he had been worrying about doing, and if he hadn't stepped in, she probably would have dealt with the Beastketeers too. Judging by her new unique skill, he could probably leave the majority, if not all, of the ruling to her whenever he needed a break. She was already good at dealing with all the representatives and managing most of Tempest. She usually took a step back during negotiations to let him deal with things. But now, Rimuru had told her to feel free to do whatever she thought was best and to only worry about contacting him if she wasn't sure about something or if she wanted to hear his feedback. Raphael could review everything at the end of each day to double-check that nothing had been done wrong. It wasn't like he was going to push everything on her now, but this way, he would have more free time. However, he would still bring Raphael to deal with most, if not all, of the tedious problems and paperwork since she could get them done in a matter of seconds. Now that he thought about it, Raphael probably had not told him about the Beastketeers until she tried to hide what she had seen using the skill. Profit because she knew that Shuna had everything under control. But as he heard the plans they had crafted, he couldn't help but laugh again. Don't worry about setting up teleportation circles. That's going to take way too long and use up too much magisteel. I can move everyone where they need to be, Rimuru told her, smiling as he added. You know, I bet even you will be surprised. Shuna giggled slightly, nodding her head. Oh, really? For some reason, I believe you. Shuna joked, standing up from the seat. Rimuru stretched a little, a small habit of his. Sage, sorry, Raph. How far are we with Veldora's unlimited imprisonment? Notice, the analysis of the unlimited imprisonment has been completed. The subject Veldora Tempest can be released at any moment. Raphael reported. Turning to Shuna, he gave her a smile before speaking. All right, I gotta go back to work. Poor Veldora has been stuck in my stomach for too long. Don't hesitate to throw all the work you don't feel like doing onto Rigurd or his people. That's their job, and they are pretty good at it. Nodding her head, Shuna smiled. I'll keep that in mind. I'll prepare some food by the time you and Veldora come back, so send me a message whenever you think you'll be back. Do you want me to organize a small event so that we can welcome him into Tempest? Ah, that would actually be great, Shuna. I am sure he would appreciate it. All right, just give me a few hours and I will set everything up. Shuna answered with a smile. Giving her a thumbs up, Rimuru used spatial motion to move to the labyrinth. After Ramiris had first set up in Tempest, Rimuru had asked her to create a massive room specifically for Veldora. The massive dragon would probably cause all of the world to go into a panic if they felt his magicules burst out. It was pretty bare bones at the moment, only a gigantic room with nothing inside, but they could decorate it better once Veldora got used to his new body. He was only a spiritual being right now, since the unlimited imprisonment had done a number on him, but that was a problem that was easy to solve. As he looked around the room, he took a moment to think. He was still slightly on edge since Raphael had accidentally triggered the time crest, but he couldn't let himself turn into a worried mess. He had a job to do. Hearing his thoughts, Raphael spoke up. Notice, through the small glimpses that the unique skill, Prophet showed me, I am confident I can prevent such a future from happening. Please do not worry about it, and allow me to be the one who deals with any inconveniences and issues that arise in the future. Hearing her, Rimuru couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Is there anything you think I should know? Rimuru asked her. Report. The current strength that Tempest holds is not yet enough to deal with the enemies in our future. The recommended course of action is to continue to focus on building strength in Tempest. At the current strength level, Tempest holds a 3.59356% chance of surviving, and that is accounting for Veldora. Keep in mind that the percentage is calculated based on the brief glimpses given, so it might be drastically lower. Raphael reported, her cold voice hiding a hint of frustration. That low? Who the hell are we fighting? Rimuru asked in surprise. Due to the low amount of information provided by the unique skill, Prophet, a conclusive answer as to who or what attacked Tempest is inconclusive. Raphael answered, sounding frustrated by the lack of information. I see. I'll keep that in mind from now on. With that finished, he began his test by using one of his new intrinsic skills, enhanced replication. In an instant, an exact copy of himself appeared, and now that he had thought about it, he hadn't really gotten a good look at what he looked like ever since evolving. It felt like just yesterday when he looked like a kid, but now he actually looked like a proper adult. He appeared to be around 20, which was what he had been aiming for. I guess I won't have to use Magicule's transformations anymore. Rimuru mused before speaking to Raphael directly. Want to give it a try? As he asked the question, the eyes of the replication turned from golden to a vivid crimson. Raphael moved their body for a few seconds, and an almost imperceptible smile appeared on their face. You know, seeing you looking just like me is a bit weird. Why don't you try out a form of your own? Rimuru suggested, causing Raphael to nod and instantly begin changing. Their form quickly shifted through countless different appearances. Raphael went from hobgoblin, Kijin, merfolk, halfling, dragonet, demon, dwarf, and even harpy before settling on human. After that, her face began to shift. Raphael went through both male and female faces before settling on a more feminine appearance, since Rimuru always pictured her as a girl due to her voice. Her hair grew longer until it reached her waist, and her face changed to resemble one similar to Shizue. She even intentionally lowered her height to be slightly shorter than Rimuru, and once she was done, she opened her cold, almost emotionless eyes. Notice, this is the form that I have chosen for myself. Raphael spoke, giving the new form a few test moves before shaking her head and causing the enhanced replication to vanish. HM, you don't want to try out the new body for some time? Rimuru asked as he felt Raphael's full consciousness return to him. Negative. Due to the limitations in enhanced replication, I am only able to use some unique skills and lower. Higher tier skills are tied to your soul. I will be far more useful to you while we are together. If you require me to, I can provide support to you using spells. However, that is something that can be done while we are together. Therefore, there is no need for me to use a separate body. We can continue with the protocol to summon forth the subject, Veldora Tempest. Alright, but feel free to ask me if you ever want to try out using a body. I'm not sure how comfortable my consciousness is, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to stretch your legs out every once in a while. However, we would probably have to do it in the labyrinth so that other people don't see you. You're my secret trump card. Acknowledged. Beginning preparations for the summoning of Veldora Tempest. Should I release Storm Dragon Veldora? Yes. The moment he gave his confirmation, he felt the surge of magicules all around the area. In the blink of an eye, the gigantic body of Veldora appeared, though it was contorted in a strange way, almost as if he was playing limbo. WRYYYYYYYYYY, Veldora shouted, his voice echoing all across the room as he posed. Oh! That was all Rimuru managed to say before Veldora jumped out of his awkward pose and took a different pose. You were expecting a storm dragon, but it was I. Veldora, he shouted, opening one of his eyes slightly to see Rimuru's reaction. However, seeing his expression, Veldora couldn't help but deflate a little. Come on, do you even know how hard I practiced that? It's really awkward to try to pose like that with my dragon body. The very least you could do is act a little impressed. Coughing a little, Veldora cleared his throat. Here, let me try another one. Ifrit suggested this one. Veldora muttered as he caused the roaring of thunder to echo through the room. How dare you wake me, the venerable storm dragon, leader of the Tempest sect. You have eyes, but you can't see me, for I am Mount Tai. Better? Veldora asked, hearing as Rimuru burst out laughing. What the hell happened to you? Rimuru asked as he finished laughing, which only made the gigantic dragon pout a little. What do you mean what happened to me? It's not my fault your mind is full of garbage. I went over all the good stuff in the first week, so I ended up getting stuck reading all your cultivation novels and crap. Honestly, my bro, you got up your taste. Veldora complained, sitting down on the ground. If it weren't for my lackeys, I probably would have gone insane there. The mean lady was driving me crazy. I don't know how you deal with her. She's a menace, not only to me, but to society. Veldora muttered, starting to complain before suddenly remembering something. Speaking of, do you have any idea what you've been doing this whole time? You've been giving out names willy-nilly. I honestly was sure I was going to die in there. But hey, I learned a valuable lesson in there. Brothers before magicules. Am I right? Veldora joked, laughing out loud as he did. Rimuru chuckled again as he heard him. Man, it must have been rough in there. He commented, seeing just how happy Veldora was to be out. It's better than the cave. Now, that was torture. I swear, if I see the hero again, I'm going to have to smack her around for a bit. I went easy on her because she was pretty, but from now on, my hands are rated E for everyone. All right, Mr. Memalord. Don't want to use your whole arsenal in one day, do you? Rimuru joked, causing the gigantic dragon to freeze, thinking for a few moments before nodding his head. Sure. Veldora chuckled, leaning down to look at Rimuru closer. So, when do I get my body? Are you going to make me ask or something? I swear, I'll let my bro suck me dry of magicules whenever he wants, and now he's making me ask for a body. Wording, Rimuru answered with a chuckle, shaking his head as he summoned another enhanced replication for Veldora. Here you go, brand new body. Gimme. With Veldora's permission, Rimuru consumed him using Beelzebub, using synthesized to unite his unstable spiritual body with a new vessel. In a way, they were true brothers now, practically twins since he was using a copy of his body. Even Raphael had to focus up to make sure the process went off without problem, and after a few minutes, Raphael's voice echoed in his mind. Report. A soul corridor has been successfully created. After consuming the remains of Veldora, a new ultimate skill has been created. Veldora, Lord of Storms. It comes with the following subskills. Summon Storm Dragon Restoration, Storm Dragon Magic Archive. In addition, using the unique skill Unlimited Imprisonment as a base to create a new ultimate skill. Activating Food Chain to consolidate all of the skills from your subordinates. Process complete. Acknowledged. Requirements have been fulfilled. The unique skill, Unlimited Imprisonment, has evolved into the ultimate skill, Uriel, Lord of Vows. As the evolution happened, Rimuru suddenly felt a weight inside of him. It was a small discomfort, but he noticed it as if his own body or soul was straining slightly. Report. Each skill, from common to ultimate, places a different amount of burden on the user's soul. The current limit has been reached. Raphael reported, answering the question before he could even ask it. She went silent for a few seconds before speaking up again. Process to research ways to permanently strengthen soul and alleviate the burden of the ultimate skills has been started. Report. Several different solutions have been found. However, to ensure there aren't any side effects, I will begin calculating and processing every variation. For now, the strain on the soul will be numbed. The best course of action at the moment would be to continue using Asmodeus Life Drain and Invigorate. It is recommended to use those skills on the current strongest subject, Frey, once she finishes her awakening, which is estimated to happen in approximately 15 hours, 36 minutes, and 52 seconds. As Raphael finished speaking, Rimuru felt as if he was back to normal. In the next moment, he saw Veldora's humanoid form. He was tall, well-built, and packed full of muscles. Surprisingly enough, his face actually shared some similarities to my own. Waha! Veldora laughed as he finished appearing, flexing his muscles and throwing a few practice punches. Now I can definitely do those things I was practicing, Veldora muttered to himself before turning to Rimuru. All right, let's go. If I am not wrong, I heard Shuna was going to make some food for us, right? Great girl. I can see why you like her. Honestly, I have wanted to try her cooking for a while, Veldora said as he began walking to the door, only to get grabbed by Rimuru. Whoa, hold up. If you go outside like that, you'll kill half the town. You need to learn to control your aura first, Rimuru said, which only made Veldora give him a smug smile. Oh, do you think I can't control my aura? Veldora asked, focusing up and pushing the aura inside his body. A good amount was still leaking through, but it wouldn't bring any damage to the area around him. The mean lady forced me to do this, so I can control my aura pretty well right now. Veldora then flexed his muscles a couple of times, expecting Rimuru to be impressed, and he couldn't help but burst out laughing as he saw his surprised expression. Wait, by mean lady, do you mean? Correct. I was overseeing Veldora during his imprisonment. I ensured that he did not waste all of his time. Chill. She who must not be named, Veldora whispered, looking a little tense as he thought back to her. Honestly, she's scarier than my sister, and my sister has killed me before. I swear the moment I wanted to take a break. Can she hear us? Giving Veldora a subtle nod, Veldora instantly let out an awkward chuckle. She would come and help me focus. I really appreciate all she did for me. Veldora finished, instantly changing the topic. So, how's the weather out here? I hear it's lovely. As the two of them walked through the dungeon, they stepped outside in a tempest, with Veldora taking a deep breath to enjoy the fresh air. Funnily enough, Veldora looked like a kid in a candy store. Before they could get too far, a woman wearing a maid outfit emerged from the shadows. She was one of the members of Sui's shadow group, and she trained as a maid in order to guard people in plain sight. Lord Rimuru, Sir Veldora, it is an honor to be in your presence. Lady Shuna is still finishing the preparations. Please, feel free to follow me while I give you a tour of Tempest, she said in a respectful tone of voice, giving a courtesy. Finally, some respect. I had almost forgotten what that was like. Veldora laughed as he nodded in approval. You got some good followers, come on. As the trio marched through Tempest, they drew some curious looks, but the people of Tempest were accepting enough to simply give a few friendly waves. Veldora was strangely insistent about wanting to go to several different places, so Toru, the maid, simply smiled as she led them to their first location, Kirobe's workshop. As they walked in, they saw Kirobe and his team of smiths waiting for them. They all looked slightly nervous, but Veldora quickly made the tension go away as he marched in with a smile. Kirobe, my good friend, I need you to do something for me, Veldora shouted, laughing as he moved to him. I will give you the honor to craft a weapon fit for me. It's a bit specific, but I think you can manage it. Kirobe looked a bit startled to be addressed so informally, but he quickly nodded his head. Yes, Sir Veldora. We will get our best people working on it immediately, Kirobe answered, looking at Rimuru, who was giving him a thumbs up to show him not to be nervous. I need a hammer. About this big, Veldora began, using a combination of hand signals and thought communication to try to explain himself. I want it to be able to channel lightning, and when I throw it, I want it to come back to me. After spending some time in Kirobe's workshop, Veldora decided he wanted to run to his next location. Apparently, he had been planning for the day he got released and had a list of things he wanted to get done. One by one, they moved through the city, enjoying everything it had to offer before heading to meet with Shuna. It was a nice calm before the storm. Chapter 41. The Wheels in Motion. Luminous, damn it. They were supposed to report to us yesterday. Where the hell is Raisin? One of Falmouth's nobles shouted, his voice rising with anxiety. The tension in the room was increasing with every passing second. What had begun as a routine meeting had devolved into chaos. The night before, the nobles had received letters detailing their crimes, each signed with a chilling threat. Now, paranoia ran rampant, igniting frantic arguments and desperate denials. In a shadowy corner, away from the frantic nobles, sat Blanc and Noir. Blanc sipped wine leisurely while Noir stood with a serene smile. It's almost too easy. I wonder if we'll impress our lord with just this, Noir mused, his eyes gleaming with fanatic devotion. Truly, never in my life have I ever committed such a mistake as the day when he summoned me. I should have thrown myself at him and offered him my very existence then. Blank's eyes glowed a bright crimson as she heard him, a vicious smile appearing on her lips. Indeed, we were fools. I prided myself on my judgment, but the look he gave us after his awakening. Blanc shivered, recalling the intensity of Rimuru's gaze. It felt as though my existence was insignificant to him. Noir began to laugh, looking at some of the spies hiding in the shadows of some nobles, his eyes sparkling as he looked at the masks they wore on their faces, completely eliminating all traces of their magicules. As he reached to touch his face, he couldn't help but smile. To think our bodies are made of his own flesh, we are one with Lord Rimuru. He smiled, and then a feeling of terror crept up his spine. You don't think he will be angry at us for offering to serve him for such a short time? At this, Blank's eyes opened wide. I only offered him a year. Her face twisted slightly as she thought back, but she shook her head and stood up. Enough of this. We need to finish this as fast as we can. When Blanc thought back to Rimuru's awakening, she couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. She wasn't one to follow other people so easily, but she had seen something that should have been impossible. Through her countless years of existence, she had seen a lot of things, but now she had seen someone become a paradox. Something that shouldn't exist. It was hard to explain, but deep inside her, she knew that she had to follow Rimuru. She felt she would regret it if she lost her chance now. Noir, for his part, was almost obsessive. He was ready to offer his entire life to Rimuru. He was everything he had been searching for. If Rimuru commanded him to die, he would do so in a heartbeat, only to continue killing himself until Rimuru told him to stop. After a few moments, Blanc and Noir stepped outside the room, then burst back in with a dramatic flare. The nobles fell silent, their eyes widening in recognition and fear. Ah, it's you. You left with our king for the war, didn't you? Are you here to give us a report? Why was there such a long delay? One of the nobles shouted, directing his paranoia and anxiety to Noir. Noir, for his part, simply smiled. Kufufufu. You are right. I am here to provide a report. Falmouth's army of 20,000 has been annihilated by Lord Rimuru. The only survivor was Raisin, the Archmage, who is currently a war prisoner. Noir announced, drawing the room into an absolute silence. In the silence, Blanc was the next to step up, giving a beautiful smile that only made the people who saw her feel fear. Lord Rimuru has also decided to take upon himself the title of Demon Lord, and due to your attack on his country, he has set his eyes on Falmouth. He wishes to use your kingdom as an example of why you should never mess with a Demon Lord. If you surrender now, there will be no need to shed more blood. The meeting room remained silent until Duke Ravengard stood up, his voice trembling with barely concealed fear. What is the meaning of this? A Demon Lord? We sent Raisin and some holy knights provided by the church. Do you think our army is so weak it can be annihilated so easily? He paused, his eyes narrowing. And, wait a second, Lord Rimuru? Are you calling the king of the monsters your lord? Seeing him stand against them, the other nobles found a spark of courage and began shouting. You are traitors. I knew you were suspicious when you offered us weapons. I will have both of you captured and I will call the church. The paladins will never. Seeing the chaos erupt once again, Noir's smile disappeared. Silence, Noir commanded, and the next moment, countless of the shadows emerged and covered the entire meeting room in steel thread. Any movement would mean losing their lives. Seeing the fear grow again in the nobles, Noir's smile returned, even brighter than before. Good. Now, how about we sit and listen now? Killing all of you would make things too messy right now. Although, Noir mused, causing all of the nobles to begin sweating. Blanc, what are your thoughts? Blanc, who decided to play along, smiled beautifully again, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Well, Noir, Lord Rimuru thinks war is messy. We should act in a way that discourages other nations from challenging us. As much as I'd love to turn this room red, it might make other nations a bit tense. But mercy has a price. Do you think they can pay? She approached one of the nobles, playfully tugging a string and drawing blood. Duke Ravengard, who appeared to be the noble with the most influence, suddenly felt the strings around him loosen, giving him a chance to speak, and he felt the sudden pressure as all eyes turned to him. We can offer you as much money as you want. We have a stockpiles of Stella. Duke Ravengard's voice choked off as the string tightened around him. Money? Blank's laughter rang out, a beautiful yet chilling sound. More, they think they can buy their way out of this. What were they planning on doing with our people again? More shook his head slowly, a mockery of disappointment in his eyes. I seem to recall something about killing us, enslaving us. Ah, the cruelty only humans can conjure. It makes you wonder who the real monsters are. The nobles felt cold sweat trickling down their faces, their fear tangible. Yet, one noble managed to muster some defiance, speaking up shakily. Our god Luminous won't allow a demon lord to live after he dashed. His words ended abruptly as his head hit the floor with a sickening thud. God Luminous? That's where you're all mistaken, Nor said, his voice cold and final. There are no kings, no gods. There is only Lord Rimuru. The sooner you accept that, the smoother this will go. Blanc stepped forward, her eyes glinting with malice. We aren't here for your money. We're here to ensure your complete submission to Lord Rimuru. Fail to comply, and your kingdom will be reduced to ashes. The room was deathly silent, and the nobles were too terrified to move. Blank's gaze swept over them, her smile as terrifying and beautiful as ever. Now, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Frey's eyes fluttered open, standing up, her wings instinctively stretched out. Her thoughts were slightly hazy, but she could still remember the words of the voice of the world. She had successfully awakened as a true demon lord and felt stronger than ever. Even her unique skill had evolved into something she didn't believe was possible, an ultimate skill. The ultimate skill, Tezcatlipoca, Lord of Reflection. From what she could feel instinctively, she knew it came with a few sub-skills. Obsidian Mirror. She could conjure a mirror from her magicules, a dark, gleaming surface capable of reflecting anything. She sensed that the strength of what she reflected would influence how many magicules it would cost her to reflect the attack. Reflection. Her original ability, she would be able to reflect any attack she took. But she would have to physically take the attack and damage before returning it. Just like before, she could use it if for some reason someone broke through her mirror. Absorption. She could feel that through the obsidian mirror, she could capture an attack. Her mirror would then consume the magicules of the attack to fuel the next reflection instead of draining her own. But if she absorbed the attack, she wouldn't be able to reflect on it. Replication. She would be able to use her own magicules, or magicules captured inside of the mirror, to recreate any attack she had absorbed into her mirror. Spatial Mirror. Using her newly found connection to space, she felt like she could connect two different points through a mirror. She could probably use it not only to teleport, but as a weapon, creating mirrors on the battlefield that could reflect or replicate attacks even far away from her. Mirror Domain, the most confusing of all of her skills. She felt like she could capture an area inside of her mirror. She would need to experiment with it to be able to understand what it could truly do. However, she could assume that she would be able to redirect and reflect attacks with it. Just by feeling what the sub-skills were, she could feel the best course of action would be to bait magic attacks or skills to fuel her mirror before using it to return every attack that came her way. The main weakness is the time before the mirror was fully powered up or pure physical strikes that can't fuel the mirror. Activating her skill for the first time, Frey summoned a full-length mirror, taking a moment to admire her new form. Her now brown feathers, which were intertwined with Rimuru's own feathers, shimmered softly. She reached out, touching one with a slight smile. Exiting the bedroom, she navigated the familiar halls of Rimuru's Chancellor's building, her mind already on the task at hand. Passing a window, she noticed the Beastketeers being escorted by one of Rimuru's maids, their expressions tinged with anxiety. Ah shit, Frey cursed, suddenly remembering her promise to Rimuru. She wanted to show him just how useful she could be, and if she had accidentally overslept, she would not be able to look him in the eyes, especially after making such a big deal about leaving it all to her. While she had said some things before the attack on Falmouth, she doubted that would be enough to get Carion to submit. Summoning her spatial mirror, she glimpsed into Rimuru's office and stepped through with a graceful leap. She found Shuna there, organizing some documents with the help of a few maids. Shuna's face lit up upon seeing her. "Ah, Frey, I've been waiting for you. Please have a seat," Shuna said, nodding to the maids to give them privacy. The Beastketeers arrived just this morning. As Frey listened, she felt a wave of relief. There was still time to push Carion towards submission. "How does Rimuru plan on rescuing all of the refugees?" Frey asked, her mind racing with strategies. The pieces on the chessboard were in motion, but she needed to ensure victory. Perhaps she could even use her spatial mirror to help. "I'm not sure," Shuna replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. "He said he wanted to surprise us, but I trust he'll come up with something brilliant." Frey thought for a moment before rising from her seat. "Thanks, Shuna. I know what I need to do. I'm going to confront that stubborn lion before Malim attacks. Actually, I have a new plan. Tell Rimuru to leave it to me." Shuna nodded, then gently placed a hand on Frey's arm. "Are you sure you don't want to stay? We're about to have a small dinner to welcome Veldora back." "No, I need to get started now before it's too late," Frey said firmly. "I'll trust Rimuru to handle the refugees, but tell him to contact me if he needs any help. I can travel quickly now, thanks to my new skill." Just as Frey was about to summon a mirror to teleport away, she heard Shuna laugh. "You know, when we first met, I thought you would be a lot more difficult to deal with." Stopping in her tracks, Frey couldn't help but smile, thinking back to their first interaction. "Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was nothing but pleasant," Frey joked, chuckling slightly. "If anything, you were the one who was being difficult. I would have been more than happy if you had known your place." Shuna matched her smile. "That was the issue, wasn't it? I knew exactly what my place was by Rimuru's side as his queen." The two of them stared at each other, the tension growing before they suddenly burst out laughing. Frey shook her head, her eyes softening. "I can only assume that the skill you awakened through the Harvest Festival has something to do with being a queen, right? I can feel the aura you give off now, which is entirely different than before." Shuna nodded, her gaze steady as she activated her royal haki, the powerful aura radiating from her. From a queen to another queen. "I'm impressed, Shuna," Frey mused with a smile. "I've been watching you since we first met, and you haven't disappointed me once. If anything, I feel like I am the one falling behind." Shuna's expression softened, her aura fading as she spoke. "Thank you, Frey. That means a lot coming from you. But now I am the one who is behind. You are a true demon lord, which means you are the strongest, so I can only ask that you look after Rimuru, since I am too weak to do so right now." "Right now?" Frey asked, a smile appearing on her face. "I guess I will have to watch my back then." After laughing one more time, she added, "If you ever want to come to Fulbrosia to drink tea, don't hesitate to ask." After Shuna nodded her head, Frey made a full-sized obsidian mirror appear in front of her. With a final nod, Frey stepped through the obsidian mirror. This left Shuna laughing slightly as she saw the mirror vanish. Shuna 2, Frey 0, or should I call that one a tie? Musing to herself, she left the office and continued preparing for the dinner. In the Sorcerer's Dynasty Sarion, Empress Elmigia sat in her garden, casually enjoying her day. She had been lazing around for some time, carefully eating and savoring every bite of one of the treats that Elian, who used the name Ellen as a disguise, had sent her. Elmigia had a couple of Rimuru pillows around her, made of the finest silk in existence. They were one of Tempest's best-selling products, and they were starting to gain some popularity worldwide. However, Elmigia's was special since it was part of a set made by Shuna in her free time. Thanks to universal thread, the silk was imbued with Invigorate and Provider. Though it couldn't actually strengthen the one who bought the pillow, if you pass your magicules through them, you would be able to feel the same warmth and comfort as if you were hugging Rimuru himself, though to a lesser extent. One of Shuna's passions was sewing, so she had actually made around 50 pillows that had become treasured items. She had gifted them to a few high-ranking people across Tempest who had asked her for one, and somehow, Elmigia had managed to gather 5 of them. Picking up the orb, she saw Elian's face, which instantly brought a smile to her face. "Ah, Elian, you have to tell me where you got this cake. I'm honestly not sure which one tastes better, this one or Yoshida's cake. We'll have to set up a tea party to taste test both of them," Elmigia said casually, lifting her fork and placing another piece into her mouth. You saw him about that, Elian began, sounding slightly nervous. So remember Tempest? The awesome place I was telling you about, with all the pillows and snacks and stuff? Hearing how nervous Elian sounded, Olmigia placed the cake she was eating down and focused. What is it? Are you in trouble? Elian looked around, slightly nervous, before speaking. Yeah. So Rimuru just awakened as true demon lord. So I was going to give you a call before, but I didn't have time, and Falmouth was invading, and they were going to kill the people here, so Rimuru went out and, Oh yeah, and Frey was there too. She also awakened. Olmigia looked surprised when she heard the first part, but her eyebrow twitched slightly as she heard the second. So the pigeon finally awakened. What a pain, Olmigia sighed, thinking back to the constant attacks Frey had launched on Sarion in the past, trying to take over their divine tree. Her mind wandered for a few seconds, and she tried to think of the best course of action before asking. If Frey had acquired an ultimate skill and still harbored the same intentions, then things may get troublesome. If Rimuru decided to join Frey in her attack on Sarion, she may even need to call her mother back. All right, tell me everything. All right, well, first of all, before you get angry, know that Rimuru will probably stop Frey from annoying us again if we ask him. He's actually pretty nice. Chapter 42. The King, the Free, and the Fool. Carion was currently outside of his palace, his fists clenched and unclenched in a rhythmic pattern, a physical manifestation of his mental preparation. He was nervous, but his face betrayed only determination, a testament to the gravity of the impending battle. His kingdom, which usually had countless lycanthropes wandering the street, was now completely empty. If it wasn't for the fact that Malim had given him a warning of 10 days, then he couldn't help but wonder what would have happened to his people. They were now fleeing as far as they could, which left a bad taste in his mouth. As a king, he should be able to protect them. But now, all of them were left to escape by themselves. Rimuru's words echoed in his mind. Not even the mountains will survive. The complete destruction of my kingdom, Carion muttered, his voice a low growl. He had once believed in his strength, in his ability to withstand Malim's fury. But now, the truth was painfully clear. Since Malim's visit, his extra skill, danger sense, had been going crazy, constantly warning him. It made him uneasy, but as the king of Eurazania, running away wasn't an option. He'd rather die than show cowardice. He had been preparing the past few days, but there wasn't much he could do now but wait. He had a responsibility to his people, and he would do all he could to fulfill it. When he first became the Beast King, he was far more uncaring about his role. He simply wished for a good fight, but as time went on, the responsibility began to weigh on him. He realized that he had people that relied on him, that looked up to him. He couldn't afford to let those people down, and if he would have to die, then so be it. His instincts suddenly screamed at him that he was in danger, so readying himself, he turned around to see an obsidian mirror appear in the air, from which an elegant woman stepped out, a woman he knew all too well. Frey, Carion said, hiding his surprise. Her wings had changed, and her eyes had a new, almost magical glow. Her skin looked smoother, and her hair looked softer. She looked more beautiful and stronger than ever. It was as if all the little imperfections in her being were completely erased. She looked absolutely divine. Carion, fancy seeing you here, Frey said with a smile, spreading her wings. I hear you've angered our little destroyer. I thought you'd know better. Sounds like you need some help. Carion narrowed his eyes. What brings you here, Frey? Are you here to try to enjoy the mess I'm in? I know you are the reason my requests for help were denied. I don't know what you are planning, but if you think I will surrender my kingdom to you so easily, you should think again. He spoke with some anger, though he held back from attacking her directly. Right now, the person he was angriest with was her. He could only assume that Malim's actions were somehow related to her and Clayman. Frey laughed softly as she heard him, her voice becoming warmer as she continued. Enjoy? No, I'm here to offer a solution. Carion tightened his fists. And what's that? Frey stepped closer, moving gracefully. Join forces with Rimuru. With his power and resources, Eurazania can be saved. In return, you submit to his rule. It's a small price to pay for the survival of your kingdom. but I can promise that you will be treated fairly. Carion made his spear appear in his hand before aiming it at Frey. Frey, we have both had our disagreements in the past, but you should know me well enough to know that I would never submit to anyone who I can beat. I have seen Rimuru firsthand. He isn't a match for me. He was already in a bad mood, and Frey only made him angrier the longer she spoke. Frey's beautiful laughter echoed in the empty streets. Oh, Carion, you don't know how funny you sound right now. Rimuru is stronger than me, and I am stronger than you. Frey spoke as she began to casually walk in the empty streets, turning to look at the gigantic palace in the distance. As she looked at her reflection in the mirror, she began to release her magicules, activating Demon Lord's Haki to pressure Carion, smiling as she saw him tense up in surprise. Pride won't save your people, Carion. Think of them, not just yourself. Rimuru's offer is generous and the only way to ensure your kingdom's future. Clayman is on his way to try to kill all of your citizens as they escape. Even if they are strong, they will be surrounded. Helpless. Frey knew Carion well enough to know just exactly what buttons to push, and using her universal sense, she could see his anger about to boil over. If she was being honest with herself, she had nothing against Carion. They had known each other for countless years, and their relationship had always been friendly. But she had made a promise, and she would make sure she kept it. She would not disappoint Rimuru, no matter what she had to do. Though if anything, she was giving Carion a favor. Joining Tempest was practically a guaranteed ticket to success. Carion, would you believe me if I told you that you will die without my help? That the only way to save Eurazania is through Rimuru? Carion stood still, looking at Frey's smile with focused eyes, his body tensing as he suddenly shot in her direction. He could feel her power from the haki she was using to pressure him, but the simple thought of accepting without a fight was enough to make him want to bash his head against a wall. He moved to punch her, but to his surprise, he saw her wings flap slightly before she suddenly vanished. Her speed, compared to before, was almost impossible to follow in his eyes. His instinct still carried him as he turned to block before he jumped back. Yet even then, he still felt a slash on his chest. As he landed, Carion's expression turned into one of absolute shock as he reached to touch the blood dripping from his chest. "How?" Carion muttered, turning to look as Frey flicked the blood off from the wing she had used to cut him. "Carion, do you really want to fight this out? Malim is coming soon. I doubt you want to be all out of energy for when she comes. It would probably be smarter to settle this after. Don't you agree?" Carion looked at Frey in silence, clenching his fists. "Agreed." As Veldora raised another glass of wine, he continued to celebrate. He was slightly drunk at the moment since he had suppressed his poison nullification, but he was enjoying finally being free after hundreds of years. "Bro, this thing is awesome. I can't believe how handy having a human body is. Never in my life have I gotten to eat such delicious things. This is even better than destroying a kingdom," he shouted as he raised a glass before moving to Shuna. "Shuna, if anyone ever annoys you, just let me know. I don't want anyone messing with my sister-in-law. All I ask is that you bake me some more treats in exchange," Veldora said before bursting out in laughter. "I'll look at him the wrong way, and then they'll die. That's how cool I am." Shuna only smiled politely as she nodded her head. "I will keep your offer in mind, Sir Veldora," she answered, causing him to shake his head immediately. No. Just Veldora. We are family over here. We all carry the Tempest name." As Rimuru looked at the two of them interacting, he felt Ramiris poke her head out of his hair. Veldora is less scary than I remember him. I used to have an entrance in the forest for my labyrinth, and I saw him massacre an entire army. He looks nicer now," Ramiris muttered as she finally fluttered out of her safe place, flying and landing on Rimuru's shoulder. The two of them sat down, looking as Shine grabbed onto a gigantic wine barrel and began a drinking competition with Veldora. As the two of them saw Shine collapse and fall asleep, Ramiris suddenly remembered. "Hey, didn't you ask me something during the Harvest Festival? Something about being a hero?" she asked, casually kicking her legs. That. Yes," Rimuru answered with a smile, reaching for her with his finger to gently tap her head. "In front of you is the first true demon lord with the potential to become a true hero." Hearing him, Ramiris instantly jumped. For real? That's impossible, she exclaimed as she suddenly fluttered up in front of him, looking at him in his eyes before gently laying her forehead to his. Notice, the hero's egg inside of you is reacting to the presence of the fairy Queen Ramiris. After a moment, Ramiris suddenly fluttered backward in surprise. What? How? She asked, her eyes sparkling as she began to flutter around him in circles. Seeing her, he couldn't help but laugh slightly as he reached out his hand for her to sit in, an offer which she took after a few more circles around him. Well, it's hard to explain, but let's just say it took a lot of effort, Rimuru answered, laughing as he saw her pouting. That's not an answer, she complained. Well, how about you explain why you are the one who decides who becomes a hero or not? I didn't know it before, but if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to get this far. What other secrets are you hiding? He asked, his voice turning playful as he leaned in and whispered. Don't tell me that I am married to the most important fairy in the world. Hearing his question, Ramiris let out a goofy smile. Well, I mean, when you put it like that, she began giving out a few boxing punches. I told you before, but back when I was at full power, I could have whomped Veldora if I wanted to. Give him the old 1-2 combo. Then, a nostalgic smile appeared on her face. Oh, you should have seen my labyrinth back then. It was a world of its own, my own small world. A whole world for me and my spirits. She let out a sigh as she dropped onto Rimuru's hand. I hadn't thought about it in a long time. I had given up on ever being able to make it again. But I guess I finally have a chance. She looked lost in thought for a moment before suddenly jumping up. All right, enough about that. You wanted to hear how amazing I was, right? The small party continued for a few more hours until Veldora eventually passed out on one of the couches. Ramiris had also decided to fall asleep, using Rimuru's hair as a blanket. As everyone went silent and began to pick up, Shuna approached with a smile. I'm glad Veldora seems to have enjoyed himself. I can only imagine what being trapped for hundreds of years would feel like. Thanks for organizing all of this, Rimuru said as he wrapped his arm around her. How do you think Noir and Blanc are doing in Falmouth? I'm honestly not sure that Sauka will be enough to stop them if they were to push things too far. Shuna chuckled slightly as she heard him, leaning her head on his body. You know, I have a feeling that everything will work out just fine. I saw Noir and Blanc after the festival, and they were different. I think they can be trusted now. Even with Frey heading to Carion's territory, I'm also sure she won't fail, she answered, giggling slightly as she added. Maybe I'm a prophet too now, because I am sure we will make it through anything together. Rimuru asked as he felt Raphael stir slightly, but he didn't get any answer. Clayman sat in his usual room, drinking some of his wine. However, the usual sweetness was gone. Looking out the window, his face didn't show emotion as his legs subconsciously bounced on the ground. Yet, as he was lost in thought, a smile crept into his face. Laplace, you're here sooner than I expected you, Clayman said as he turned to look at Laplace, who was sitting on a couch next to him, looking up at the ceiling. Well, our lord was worried about you. Maybe I should go by she now, since she's in that body now. Laplace began, getting slightly distracted before turning to Clayman and making another orb of domination appear in his hand. Kigali was worried about you, since you said Malim was resisting with just one. She rushed to make this one, so she is exhausted right now. You had better give her a proper thanks once you have completed your plan. You don't know how hard she pushed herself? Clayman laughed as he grabbed the small purple orb, lifting it up to reflect the sunlight. Don't worry. In just a few days, I will be strong enough to help our lord regain their position. Everything is going as I planned, though, sadly, we had a loss. Jern got caught, Clayman muttered, placing the orb into one of his pockets. Laplace looked at Clayman incredulously. You call that going as planned? Clayman only smirked as he answered. Well, that loss was within my expectations. She was becoming attached to Tempest, so she might have turned on me. If anything, maybe I should thank the slime for once. He finally gave me a proper excuse to justify my actions in Valpurgis. Laplace, who was usually playful, couldn't help but fully drop the act. Boss is worried about him, and after talking to Tyr and Footman, I believe he is not someone to be underestimated. The slime was practically able to take down Charybdis by himself. He has organized his own city, which is filled with named monsters. Boss was able to see through his acting. He's dash Laplace began only to be cut off by Clayman. That's enough, Laplace. I know you are worried. I was created by our Lord specifically for this purpose. If you think I haven't been taking the proper precautions, then you are wrong. Falmouth is currently on its way to weaken Tempest. Clayman began, his expression turning into a mixture of anger and annoyance. Standing up from his seat, he looked down at Laplace. I don't expect Falmouth to win. I know their strength. Using the drug they grow in Veldora's cave, I don't doubt they will be able to kill everyone there. But the price they pay for that strength will turn them into sheep ready to be executed for our Lord. Falmouth's role is to weaken Tempest. Walking to the window, he looked at the forest in the far distance. With Malim under my full control, Eurazania will be destroyed. And then, Fulbrosia will be too. He began, clenching his fists slightly. Dino won't do anything. He will simply sleep his way through the meetings. De Gruel has enough problems with his kingdom, so he will also not care. Ramiris is a joke. Leon is far too self-absorbed to care. And if everything goes well, we can finally get revenge on him for his crimes against our Lord. If your mission succeeds, then Valentine will be too busy with the church to do anything. Smiling, Clayman couldn't help but laugh. Think of all the resources we spent trying to create one demon lord. But soon, we will have almost all of the 10 great demon lords under our influence. With Malim, we can work our way one by one, starting with Ramiris. The only real threat is the Lord of Darkness, Guy Crimson. The room went silent for a few moments before Laplace burst into laughter. The sound echoed as Clayman's expression turned cold. Laplace laughed for an uncomfortable amount of time until, eventually, he stood up, wiping an imaginary tear from his face. Clayman, I will trust you because I know you. You are not the type to get carried away so easily. So maybe I am just not smart enough to understand you. Just know that we will be waiting for you. But promise me one thing, Clayman. What is it? Clayman asked, his expression still cold as he looked at Laplace, who walked until they were face to face. Promise me you will ask for help, and that if the situation calls for it, that you will back down. As long as we are alive, we can rebuild. Clayman's cold expression broke, allowing a gentle smile to grow on his face. You didn't used to be such a paranoid man, Laplace. Don't worry about me. Just wait and see. Everything will change soon. Laplace nodded his head, smiling behind his mask as he took a couple of playful steps backward. Oh, I'm the paranoid one? I wonder if Tyr and Footman would agree with that. Weren't you the one who kept so many secrets from his own servants just in case one betrayed you? I swear, poor Mjurin could have been so useful to us if you had let her in slightly. I honestly like her. She was a hard worker. Laplace teased him slightly as he grabbed one of his most valuable wine bottles off the shelf and began to toss it in the air. Clayman smiled as he saw Laplace finally relax, feeling the anxiety inside of his heart lower slightly. "Ah, man, you've been really drinking lately?" Laplace joked as he made the bottle disappear. "I'm taking a few, just looking out for you," he added, giving a salute as he vanished. As he appeared far into the forest, Laplace couldn't help but sigh. He popped the cork off from one of the wine bottles and tilted his mask slightly to take a drink.